And we'll move on to number 10, which is Firestorm. Ronnie Raymond was a jock of a high school student who was also, funnily enough, an environmentalist. When Ronnie showed up to protest the opening of a new nuclear plant, he met Dr. Martin Stein, a Nobel Prize winning physicist who worked there. When the Firestorm Matrix reactor malfunctioned, thanks to one of Ronnie's compadres, Stein and Raymond were both caught in the radioactive aftermath and somehow found themselves fused together into Firestorm, the Nuclear Man. Now, they are a being with two minds sharing the same body, usually with Raymond taking the lead. Alongside the rather unique one man with two minds thing, Firestorm also gained the ability to transmute any non-organic matter, having complete control over molecules. With this ability, he can do many things. Flight, phasing, regeneration, self-sustenance, strength, durability, shapeshifting, energy projection, and absorption and density manipulation. All of which, as you know, make for an incredibly powerful individual. Number 9. Vixen. Mary McCabe, who is the superhero known as Vixen, is also a successful fashion icon, talk show host, and animal activist, who is able to channel the powers of any animal that has walked or evolved on Earth through the mystical object given to her ancestor by the god Anansi called the Tantu Totem. Originally, it was the Tantu Totem that gave her her abilities, but over time it has been changed. The totem actually just helps hone said abilities. Basically, Vixen has a strong connection to the Red, which is a magical thingy that connects all animal life in DC Comics. A few other characters also share a connection to the Red, but I think Vixen is definitely one of the coolest. Normally, she uses this power for flight and to enhance her speed, strength, senses, and healing abilities. But she has also sometimes used the poisonous abilities of certain animals and has even been seen to fully transform into animals. Vixen's ability is so wide that she can use the light of an anglerfish to create powerful lasers, use the armor of armored beetles to withstand a punch from Superman, and she can even create a force field using just the energy from the Red itself. Number 8. Blue Beetle. The Blue Beetle Scarab is what gives this hero their powers. I say there because the Blue Beetle has been multiple people over the years. Dan Garrett and Ted Kord were the first, with the most recent Blue Beetle being Jamie Reyes, and he will also be the one featured in the DCEU, so I'm gonna mainly focus on him, sorry. Once the Scarab latches onto Reyes' spine, it can manifest various powers. When he's in danger, the Scarab automatically activates and encompasses him in a high-tech suit of blue, beetle-like armor. This suit provides Reyes with superhuman durability and strength, flight with wings that spread out of the back, and speed with rocket boosters. It can also translate both human and alien languages for Reyes. The suit's durability is so high that it is bulletproof and allows Reyes to survive the heat of a rocket launch, re-entering Earth's orbit, and even explosions. The suit can also produce energy blasts from its hands that are powerful enough to discharge Kryptonian radiation and neutralize magic, which, if you don't know, both of those things are quite the feat. The suit can also construct objects out of nanotechnology as well as transform itself into nearly anything. The suit has transformed itself into anything from swords and cannons to a staple gun, which could probably be pretty useful, I think. It can manipulate alien technology and apparently has access to WMDs that are apparently capable of taking out the Spectre, so yeah, don't sleep on Blue Beetle. Number 7. Red Tornado. Originally, Red Tornado was an android created by the supervillain T.O. Morrow, whose name I absolutely hate. But he was made to infiltrate the Justice Society of America. But since then, the android has, well, he's become more than an android, but he's also become a noble superhero and a pretty gosh darn powerful member of the Justice League. Red Tornado basically is an air elemental housed in an android shell. He can create powerful air currents, powerful enough to level skyscrapers in seconds. He channels air and wind forces through his arms and legs to produce bursts of cyclone strength winds and high speed forward velocity flight. He can also absorb air, which, I mean, we all absorb air when we breathe, so it's kind of weird. But Red Tornado is also super strong and very durable, enough so that he, or it, can take a missile straight on and come out completely unharmed. A few times, Red Tornado actually managed to become invisible to the human eye due to his high velocity movement, and surprisingly not because he's an elemental. His android form also gives him resistance to various mental powers. He's very cool, but unfortunately not as popular as he should be. Number 6. The Ray. Raymond Terrell was apparently born with a condition that didn't allow him any exposure to sunlight. Or at least, that's what he had been told. It turns out Ray had been lied to. In reality, Ray's real father was Happy Terrell, a World War II hero known as the Ray. So it turns out Raymond was born with tremendous superpowers that only awaken with light exposure. Upon discovering his new powers, he actually went invisible for about 4 years, before saving a friend, turning the assailant invisible, and then restoring them to scare the bejesus out of them. Ray is a being of light and has many abilities as a result. Once his body absorbs natural light, like sunlight or artificial light, he can direct the energy to rearrange molecules into any form, matter, or energy. With the projected energy, he can fly, project rays, beams, and bolts of destructive light, and create constructs out of pure light similar to how a Green Lantern can do it. Obviously, he can bend light to make himself or others invisible, but he can also do a similar thing in order to create illusions. And after consuming light energy, he can sustain himself off of it, not needing to eat or drink.
Number 5. Dawn Allen. You can probably guess this one by the name, yes. The daughter of super speedster Barry Allen, aka The Flash. She made her comic book debut with Adventure Comics 373. She's a fun one. She's actually born in the future, during the first crisis. See, this was in the 30th century, before the Legion stuff in the 31st century, right? So they had to hide their powers. They also go by the name of the Tornado Twins, for good reason. They both obtained a small amount of super speed from Barry. So they rescued Wally West, and it was so badass. Like, they knew what they were doing. Just because they aren't as fast doesn't mean that they don't know how to get the job done. So the twins worked side by side, and when they combined their efforts, they were unstoppable. I mean, just these two crazy tornadoes coming at you. I mean, can you be more intimidating? I don't know. Number 4, Bruce Wayne Jr. He's part of the Super Sons, so I have to include him in this list, obviously. Bruce Wayne Jr. We go on over to the 1965 version of Bruce Wayne Jr. making his debut in World's Finest, issue 154. He's the son of Catherine Kane, and as you could have guessed, Bruce Wayne Sr. Yep. He's part of a duo called the Super Sons, and that name is pretty perfect for the gig. Definitely belongs here. Cited by Superman Jr., the two grew up together. I mean, the opening of their issues show them both reading up about their dads and all their crazy achievements. They even get married on the same day. I mean, these are life goals. I mean, I hope me and my super buddies do this one day. Or just me and my buddies get married one day, that'd be nice. My favorite part is seeing the two interact, right? Like Superman's powers, there's one point where Superman's not letting baby Batman down from a teeter-totter. And he's like, nah, I'm not letting you down till you admit that my dad's cooler than yours. And he's like, alright, I guess. And comes back down all shameful. Bruce Wayne Jr. actually grew up forgetting about his father's identity somehow, and then when he was reminded of it, he tried to capture a crook while disguised as Batman. I mean, yeah, if my dad was like, hey, I'm Batman, I'd be like, okay, what size is that? I can probably squeeze in there. It didn't go well for him, you know, the first shot. He didn't gather any evidence. He just went in raw. It wasn't great. So after an argument with his father, Bruce Jr. left to meet up with his other man, Clark Kent Jr. See, they're homies. They don't go too far for a reason. I would watch a buddy cop show with these two just saving people and smashing things up, but they have to be kids. They have to be moody little kids, and they have to require little super naps in the middle of heated battles. That's the deal. Number 3, the Huntress. First appearing in All-Star Comics issue 69 back in 1977, Helena is a lawyer for Cranston, Grayson, and Wayne, but of course that's not all. Earth 2 is home to the daughter of an older Batman and Catwoman. That's right, when she was only 19 years old, her mother, Selina Kyle, now a retired Catwoman, in the future, died in a tragic mishap, right? Now, to add insult to injury, this henchman, Silky Cernak, was the reason behind this photo that just popped up that shows Selina Kyle as Catwoman murdering a police officer. Not a great photo, not cool. If TMZ was around, they'd be like, oh my god, trending, BuzzFeed, let's do it. This is wild, right? So of course, Helena was upset and wanted to make things right. So she took a page out of her parents' book and became the Huntress. She went after Silky Smooth Cernak and got him arrested. Awesome. Her mother ended up being okay after all. Don't worry, yeah, it turns out she didn't even kill anybody. The photo was tampered with the whole time. Bad guys doing bad stuff. She kept the suit and eventually wound up on the Justice Society of America. See, if you want the truth, kids, you just gotta get a super suit and, wrap some dudes in nets. It's easy. Just make them talk. It's easy. Number 2, Dina Drake, Black Canary. Flower shop owner by day, superhero at night. The classic life thing. She would work alongside Larry Lance before marrying him. How cute. I mean, he died by the hands of Aquarius, and then that forced Dina to move from Earth 2 to Earth 1 to start a new life, but cute nonetheless. But have no fear, it was in doing this that she met Green Arrow, and they of course hit it off. She has this really awesome ability called the Canary Cry, which is what I do when I, don't get what I want. Where basically she just screams really loud, knocking back her foes. It's a great combo with her fighting skills. Her origins are a little confusing. So before the Crisis storyline, there was a 1983 issue that had Starman taking Black Canary to the Thunderbolt dimension, okay? Where she sees a coffin containing Larry Lance and herself. Yeah, here's the scoop. So in the Justice League of America issue 220, it's revealed that Dina and Lance gave birth to a daughter. That daughter was cursed by a magician. The curse being that the child has an ear-piercing scream, so this baby was brought to the Thunderbolt dimension and then was made to believe that her parents were dead. And finally, number 1, Superboy, also known as Connor Kent or Con-El, made his debut in 1993 Adventures of Superman issue 500. So Superboy was created to essentially be a replacement for Superman, right? And they didn't ask me, how rude. So after Superman died fighting Doomsday, knocking him out, Project Cadmus then used Kryptonian DNA to make Superboy. So he's the son of both Lex Luthor and Clark Kent. What a weird combo. They wanted a new hero, they wanted to feel safe, so why not just make a clone of Superman? Easy peasy, right? It sounds fine. Cadmus wasn't able to get Superman's DNA, so they grabbed a human clone, made it look like him, and it turns out if you put a clone near the grave of a dead superhero, you absorb some powers. So Superman's bioelectric aura was absorbed by the clone and thus was given tactile telekinesis, which means you can simulate the powers of Superman for a small amount of time. He even rocked a high-tech visor to solve that problem, He was cool looking, he knew what he was doing. The Metropolis kid wasn't a fan of being called Superboy also, so watch your mouth out there.
Coming in at number 10 on our list, you can't go listing off members of the Justice League without somehow including Batman. In a superhero group consisting of aliens, metahumans, and even literal gods, somehow a mere human being named Bruce Wayne is capable of not only keeping up with the DC Universe's best, but does such a good job of it that he's considered one of the Justice League's most central and fundamental members. Add that to the fact that Batman's got a dossier for each and every member of the Justice League just in case they ever go rogue or find themselves compromised by supervillains, and Batman goes to show that knowledge is power even if he doesn't quite have any super strength of his own. At number 9, we've got our first Kryptonian hero of the list with the one and only Power Girl. Biologically the same person as Superman's cousin Kara Zor-El, aka Supergirl, Power Girl is from the destroyed Krypton of the alternate universe of Earth 2. While not quite as powerful as the Superman we all know and love, given Kryptonians' lower power levels in this universe, Power Girl is still a mighty force to be reckoned with super speed, super strength, flight, and heat vision all combining into one package. A benefit she has compared to both Superman and Supergirl is being immune to kryptonite, although magic's effectiveness against her is unfortunately still very much a worry. Nevertheless, Power Girl has shown many times over the years that she's far more than just a sex symbol, and has very much earned her place among the ranks of the Justice League. Coming in at number 8, we've got Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern. Originally a test pilot working for the military, Hal Jordan became a member of the legendary Green Lantern Corps after being gifted a ring by a dying member of the Corps, Abin Sur. Out of all the members of the Justice League, the Green Lantern's power set allows the most creativity, with Hal Jordan able to make constructs out of pure green light and willpower that can take the shape of anything he sees fit. Combined with increased strength and the ability to fly throughout the cosmos, the Green Lantern is an essential member of the team on any space-related adventures, and with the only limit to his constructs being his own willpower, the Green Lantern can be very tough to beat. Speaking of green and powerful cosmic superheroes, at number 7 we have the one and only J'onn J'onzz, otherwise known as the Martian Manhunter. The last son of Mars, because apparently the Justice League is all about hiring the last people from dying planets, the Martian Manhunter possesses many of the same strength and speed-based powers as other spacefaring heroes in the DC universe, but with one particularly impressive twist. He can change his body and appearance into any shape he desires, from impersonating humans and blending in on Earth, to creating clothing and weaponry out of his own molecular structure. With an incredibly tragic backstory that saw him losing both his wife and child during a civil war on Mars, J'onn J'onzz has since then spent his days protecting his new adopted planet of Earth and aiding the Justice League when evil arrives from beyond the stars. Coming in at number 6, we have a character that would definitely rank much higher on this list if his powers were a bit more stable. Please welcome to the stage Captain Atom. Originally a scientific volunteer named Nathaniel Atom, Nathaniel chose to take part in experiments at a research facility called the Continuum. Originally meant to pilot a special dimensional transfer vehicle during a cross-dimension experiment, Nathaniel was seemingly blown apart and atomized by radiation during the experiment, only to reappear moments later as an energy-based life form. Captain Atom's powers seem almost godlike to an extent, capable of manipulating matter and all of the energy fields associated with it, but with the Captain frequently needing to return to the Continuum whenever he'd begin having issues with remaining corporeal or maintaining control of his powers. And while the Justice League doesn't ally with him often, given the potential danger of his radioactive abilities, he really knows how to pack an atomic punch when he's needed.
Number 5. The Justice Lords. What makes the Justice Lords darker than the other timelines mentioned so far is the fact that the Justice League actually managed to completely rid their world of crime. While an absence of crime would be a positive thing for most, it's actually alluded that this version of the Justice League went to pretty extreme measures in order to accomplish such a feat. Appearing in the Justice League animated series episode A Better World, Lex Luthor has become the President of the United States and decided to just execute the Flash. That didn't really sit well with the Flash's friends, which is why an enraged Superman confronted Luthor in the Oval Office. Realizing he would never reform Luthor and keep him from committing such villainous acts, he incinerated him on the spot with his heat vision. With the President out of the way and a new method devised to deal with villains, the Justice League rechristened themselves the Justice Lords and went about establishing a new world order under their quote-unquote protection. They eventually came into conflict with the Justice League when they tried to instill their totalitarian rule on the other DC universes, but thankfully they were finally stopped by Superman and his pals, which actually included Lex Luthor, who became instrumental in stopping the Justice Lords and stripping them of their power. Check out this episode for yourself in 2003's Justice League Season 2, episode 22 and 23 as well. Number 4. The Injustice League. Back in 1988, we got introduced to a new version of the Justice League known as the Injustice League. This ragtag group consisted entirely of criminals who never actually made it big in their various enterprises, and determined to make it big, they just banded together and became the rather ineffective Injustice League. Major Disaster, Big Stir, Cluemaster, Multi-Man, Clock King, and the Mighty Bruce are what made up the roster. They barely managed to pull off any capers and mostly just got their butts kicked. Oddly enough though, after 2000's Silver Age, the Showcase #1 came out, it retroactively made 1989's Injustice League the second version of the team. The quote-unquote original team was brought together in the Silver Age by the evil intergalactic Agamemnon, who used Lex Luthor to recruit other villains like Black Manta, Bizarro, and the Joker. This Injustice League was way more effective and even managed to switch minds with the JLA on one occasion. When the Justice League managed to switch back, they erased the memory of the event from the villains' minds completely. Check out these two teams in 1989's Justice League International #23, or head over to 2000's Silver Age Showcase #1. Number 3. Injustice Justice League. Now I think everyone can agree that no other timeline has featured more DC character deaths than the Injustice timeline. After the Joker takes virtually everything from Superman, the Man of Steel finally cracks and just kills the Clown Prince of Crime. From there, heroes continue to devolve into their worst selves, with a fair split maintaining their moral codes and principles. In the video game and comic franchise Injustice Gods Among Us, the Justice League still calls themselves by that same name, eventually changing it to the Regime though. But that's about the only similarity between the two universes, because the Injustice universe is about as dark as it can get. Superman loses his cool and just thrusts his hand through the Clown's chest after the Joker destroys Metropolis, killing Lois Lane. As you might imagine, this not only kills the Joker but surprises Batman and everyone else around him. Superman decides he is fed up with the old way of doing things and sets out to create a new world order under his totalitarian rule. Superman reforms the League after opposing Batman and many of his other former friends. In the end, it's actually the Dark Knight who succeeds in recruiting Superman from the regular DC universe, who comes in to defeat his darker alter self. Now, if you're not familiar with this storyline, check it out for yourself, starting with 2013's Injustice Gods Among Us #1, or honestly just head back and play through the games one more time. Number 2, the new Reichman. Ever wonder what would happen if Superman didn't crash land in Kansas and instead he crash landed in, I don't know, Germany? Well, wonder no longer, because on Earth 10 that is the reality. On Earth 10, the Germans used Superman, known as Overman in this universe, to win World War II and basically take over the world. As the champion of Germania and the leader of the new Reichman, Overman is accompanied by Brunhilde, Earth 10's Wonder Woman, Leatherwing aka Batman, Blitzen aka The Flash, The Martian, Martian Manhunter, Underwater Man aka Aquaman, and Overgirl aka Supergirl, who was unfortunately killed in battle. Alongside the German forces, Overman conquered the world in less than 20 years, after which he decided to leave the Earth for a while. 3 years later, he returned with a clear head and saw all of the damage he helped cause and became an advocate against all that he once stood for, well, still working alongside them for some reason. Eventually, German scientists used callus cells to create a clone of him known as Overgirl that Overman loved like family. However, she died not too long after her creation, and this hit him hard. Inconsolable and grief-stricken, Overman leaked some precious information to the freedom fighters that resulted in the demise of the new Reichman and Metropolis as well. Check out probably one of the saddest Superman stories I have ever heard, starting with 2015's The Multiversity Guidebook, number 1. And number 1, the Crime Syndicate of America. Consisting of Ultraman, Owlman, Superwoman, Johnny Quick, and the Power Ring, the Crime Syndicate of America is the first alternate version of the Justice League to ever come to life following the events of Crisis on Infinite Earths. That event erased the multiverse but left the Antimatter universe, also known as the Quardian universe within DC's continuity. Within the Antimatter universe, the Crime Syndicate existed as an evil version of our favorite superheroes, only they were far more dastardly than their previous versions. With virtually no one to oppose them, they managed to establish and maintain control over a large portion of their Earth. Eventually they grew bored of their Earth, and the Crime Syndicate began kidnapping people from the 52 multiverse matter-based worlds, and were visited by our Justice League to retrieve the people from the Justice League Earth that have been kidnapped. Fast forward past some pretty sweet fights, and we see Owlman along with Superwoman and Ultraman banished to a prison subdimension, while Johnny Quick and the current Power Ring were captured. Highly recommend you check out the storyline for yourself, so check it all out in their first appearance in 2000's JLA Earth number 2.
Number 10, Constantine, or Constantine, or whatever you want to say. John Constantine is a really fun inclusion for this list because he is extremely powerful and not powerful at all at the same time. John can wield magic for sure through years and years of learning, training, traveling, but he doesn't have any kind of magical affinity or any kind of beneficial magical family heritage. John relies on actual magic as a very last resort, and the magic he knows how to use isn't anything to scoff at. He has even, very momentarily, been able to hold back Dr. Fate, but using magic comes at a cost, and he knows this. So, what Constantine prefers is trickery. Lies, deceit, traps, his wits, weapons, artifacts, backup, and calling in favors. John smokes, he drinks, he's in his middle ages, and he ain't in the greatest of health. He can throw a punch for sure, but most people are a physical match for him. But at the same time, he has been able to trick, outsmart, or overpower gods, demons, and angels, Batman, Superman, Darkseid, Swamp Thing, Dr. Fate, the Phantom Stranger, the Spirit of Justice, the Spectre, who's the Spirit of Vengeance, Lucifer, and even the Presence, who is basically DC's version of God. He tricked the Presence into curing John of cancer and granting him divine protection by selling his soul to 3 separate Hell Lords who would start a civil war over his soul, which would spill out onto Earth and into heaven. You don't sleep on this bad-mouthed middle-aged man. Number 9, I, Vampire. In comparison to most of the other characters who have made this list, Andrew Bennett as a vampire is kinda squishy. Vampires are practically indestructible and can regenerate any damage done by consuming blood. They have superhuman strength, speed, reflexes, stamina, can transform into bats, wolves, rats, and mist, and have enhanced senses and a bit of psychokinesis. But despite that, they have some major weaknesses that pretty much everyone is aware of, with a big one being the frickin' sun, unless they can find a way to temporarily make themselves immune. But for I, Vampire, he has a peculiar ability to eventually automatically revive himself after he is killed, even if he becomes a pile of ash from the sun. He has even survived the end of the universe. Now, this ability is a bit of a mystery even to Bennett himself. himself. When he survived the end of the universe, it was at the will of the Presence, leading some to believe that this may be true in all cases, but that's not actually confirmed. The point here is that he is literally unstoppable because he will always just come back. Is it cheating? I don't know, maybe, but if it is, then our next spot absolutely is cheating. Number 8, Dead Man. While I, Vampire, will come back from the dead every time, Dead Man is already dead, and therefore pretty much can't be touched except by magical artifacts, or magical beings, but even then he can usually give them a good beating. Boston Brand is a ghost. Sorry. Giving him some pretty limited abilities like intangibility, flight, and invisibility, plus a little bit of dimensional travel, which is a bit more useful. But where he truly becomes powerful is in his ability to possess other people. Now, of course, this ability isn't always reliable because there always needs to be some kind of challenge to nerf an ability like this. Batman, for example, is a struggle because of his incredibly strong mind, and there are a lot of strong-minded individuals in comic books. Plus, he can't control people who have already been hypnotized or who are immune to being possessed, like the Spectre. But there are still quite a few extremely powerful characters who he could potentially, and has, possessed. Judy Moon, the Enchantress, Swamp Thing plus the Green, Pantheon, who was an elder god, and the multiversal entity known as the House of Mystery have all been possessed by Deadman. But there's no reason he couldn't possess Superman, Wonder Woman, and a large variety of other heroes and villains. Number 7, Animal Man. Thanks to an encounter with some rather strange aliens, Bernard Buddy Baker gained access to the morphogenic field, otherwise known as the Red. This field basically allows Buddy to absorb and use different attributes of nearby animals while still being a human. So he has been able to move his eyes independently like a chameleon, he's been able to ram against a speeding car with the abilities of a rhino, he can fly by tapping into birds, he's regenerated a whole lost limb by tapping into an earthworm, gained the strength to lift a car by tapping into a spider, and he's ran at 75 miles per hour by adopting the abilities of an ant. But his abilities have done some even more surprising things, like, for example, when a villain cut Buddy off from any nearby animals, he took on the attributes of the bacteria inside that villain's body, allowing Animal Man to duplicate himself, and he can even tap into the attributes of extinct animals like dinosaurs, which has allowed him to punch out a T-Rex and survive being crashed into by a plane by borrowing the abilities of both a Stegosaurus and a rhino. And that's another thing. Over time, he's received power boosts that allow him to use multiple abilities at once, and then to even use the abilities of any animal in the universe, like when he used the power of a Sun Eater, which let him fly across the galaxy in an instant. He's even absorbed the powers of Krypto, Superman's superdog. Number 6, Aquaman. The ocean is a genuinely terrifying and interesting place. As such, the Atlanteans of DC Comics possess a few advantages over us regular humans. They have super strength, speed, endurance, and durability, all in order to help them survive the mind-boggling pressure at the insane depths of the ocean at which they live. But Aquaman himself is a royal Atlantean, which means that he is a super Atlantean. His strength and durability has allowed him to close the Marianas Trench, go toe-to-toe with powerful foes like Martian Manhunter, Lobo, and Wonder Woman, and tank blasts from Starro. His speed, which is often forgotten about, allows him to swim at 10,000 feet per second, and he can move even faster without the pressure or drag of water, allowing him to dodge bullets and catch lasers. But Aquaman has quite a few other advantages. His control over sea life has helped him in a large majority of his fights, with his underwater allies coming to his aid and helping him do things he probably couldn't do alone, like creating a massive tsunami with whales. His telepathic skill is actually quite impressive as well. Some of my favorite feats include him telepathically controlling a Green Lantern ring, reading the Martian Manhunter's mind without permission, and controlling a space dragon. Now, for a while he had a hand that was a hook, and then became a magical mystical water hand that could do a whole other level of feats, but I'm out of time, so we're moving on. Number 5, Injustice League. Okay, so we have the Crime Syndicate of America, but there was also a team of villains put together to fight that team of villains. So, sort of technically making these villains heroes, but also not really because they're still villains. Right? The important information here is that the Injustice League, at least the one I'm referring to, was formed to combat the Crime Syndicate of America from Earth 3. The team's villainous members included Bizarro, Black Manta, Black Adam, Catwoman, Deathstroke,
Sinestro or Parallax, Captain Cold, and they were formed and led by Lex Luthor. The team first appeared in Forever Evil number 3 in January of 2014 when the Crime Syndicate of America invaded the Prime Earth universe and tried, and very nearly did, take over the world.
At number 4, we have the Injustice Syndicate. I know, lots of groups with Syndicate and Injustice in their names. Well, that's because this evil version of the Justice League actually exists as a sort of combination between the Injustice League and the Crime Syndicate, both of which are included in this list respectively. Appearing in Batman the Brave and the Bold, in the episode called Deep Cover for Batman, Batman manages to travel to their evil dimension and infiltrate their operations disguised as Owlman. He sees that this group comprises of an evil version of himself, along with other evil alternate versions of other heroes he knows and works with. While eavesdropping, Batman learns of their plans to, destroy other universes entirely, which of course, he feels is something he needs to put a stop to. And it can't wait, naturally. So he decides to take all of them on himself, and because he's Batman, and it is his TV show after all, he wins. Those universes can thank him later.
Number 3, the Joker League. In Emperor Joker number 1 of October 2000, the Joker has gained 99.99% of the reality warping powers of the 5th dimensional being, Mr. Mxyzptlk, and he used them to completely warp the world into an insane offshoot of our real world. In this Joker world, he has put together an evil, insane version of the Justice League called the Joker League of Anarchy. The team members include some characters we've seen before, such as Bizarro number 1, Enigma, who's the Riddler, Gravedigger Lad, who is actually Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, Harley Quinn, and Poison Ivy. He has also created completely new characters that are wholly original to this story: Ignition, Bounty, Schism, and Scorched. He even has Lex Luthor as a jester. They are basically just the henchmen of this already pretty much all-powerful version of the Joker. Just another way of keeping him entertained, it seems.
At number 2, I'm putting the Injustice League from the video game Injustice: Gods Among Us. Most of us already know how this story goes, but in case you don't, this is one of the cooler and more well-written storylines about an evil alternate version of the Justice League. In most cases on this list, these evil groups are created by an alternate reality, which is always fun but pretty simple to come up with. But this storyline shows a radicalized Superman leading the Justice League to the dark side. And like I said, this isn't because he's an evil version of Superman or one that's possessed by some evil force. He's genuinely turned to evil after the Joker tricks him into killing Lois Lane. So to combat this new unexpected evil force, Batman decides to bring in other members from the Justice League from another universe, and the result is some pretty great fighting gameplay. And right as the game was being released, a comic book series of the same name was also being released in tandem, serving as a prequel to the game, where you can derive general story points from the game itself. Most of the backstory I just explained actually comes from the comics. It's cool to see the video game and comic book worlds working in tandem, and they make a pretty cool new storyline that I figure has to be ranked pretty high on this list.
Number 1, the Crime Syndicate of America. The Crime Syndicate of America hails from the strength-obsessed Earth 3, and is a twisted, evil version of many characters who make up the main universe Justice League of America. Its members include Ultraman in place of Superman, Thomas Wayne Jr., aka Owlman, and Alfred Pennyworth as the Outsider, Superwoman, who was Lois Lane at one point and Donna Troy at another, the cowardly Harold Jordan and vengeful John Stewart, who are both Power Ring, which are evil Green Lanterns, at different times, John Allen and John Chambers separately also as Johnny Quick, Atomica, Sea King, Deathstorm, Grid, and John Johns. They come into contact with the main universe many times, and they almost always spell out bad news, as you'd expect from the antithesis to the Justice League of America.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Jade, aka Jennifer Lynn Hayden. She made her comic book debut in All-Star Squadron issue 25 back in 1983. She is the daughter of Green Lantern Alan Scott and Rose Canton, aka Thorn. Now after conceiving their children, Rose fled, fearing that she would harm them, right? So she gave them up for adoption and they were separated. Jenny Lynn, aka Jade, was adopted by a couple in Milwaukee in the suburbs. She didn't know she had a twin brother until her late teens. Surprise, nice. Once the two of them met up, they tried to join the Justice Society, but were rejected. But have no fear, the two of them joined other children of Justice Society and then formed Infinity Inc. And then Jade's powers are of course similar to her father's due to his exposure to magical energies. She's able to generate green energy and shape it into constructs according to her will, right? We all knew this. The sibling bond is a strong one. Jade and Todd both can communicate through a limited form of telepathy. It's a twin thing, you know? And guys, before we continue on to number 9, if you haven't already, go ahead and give us a thumbs up because it really goes a long way for us here at our Fat Cave. Also, huge news, we have another channel coming back after 3 years of running the show over here. Landon himself. He's not here, but if he was, he would be there. Landon himself is coming back with Landon Productions, premiering December 7th. So go and follow and then turn on your notifications because you don't want to miss what he's got coming. I've seen glimpses of it here at the studio and I'm pumped. Let's do it.
Is the Canada Goose gonna take it on?
I'm on top like I'm goddamn Mario, right? I'm just
Not today. Maybe tomorrow. Okay, is this real life right now?
Number 9, Zatanna. Appearing for the first time in Hawkman issue 4 back in 1964, Zatanna is the daughter of Zatara. She's a stage magician and she's really good. Like, really good, because you know, she has actual magic abilities. So she makes a pretty decent amount of money with these shows, which makes sense. I mean, if I had these powers, I would do the exact same thing. David Blaine who? Bye. Her father helped out the Justice Society and the Justice League of America numerous times. He was like the magic guy on the team, although Zatanna got the official membership. She gets her deeds done by speaking her spells backwards. Her mother is quite noteworthy as well, I'd say. So Zatanna thought she had died in a car crash after her birth, but actually she's a Homo Magi, a race of magical humans that coexisted alongside Homo sapiens. And her name is Cindella. She's from another dimension. How neat. The classic made you think I was in a car accident so I can fulfill my destiny with my own magical species scenario. Nice, classic. We've all been there. Number 8, Lord Chaos. Making his debut in New Titans Annual issue 7 back in 1991, Lord Chaos is the son of Donna Troy and Terry Long. Now, Donna Troy may have a pretty confusing backstory, but her son, Robert Long, isn't as crazy. So let me explain. He was born with the powers of a god, right? So with that, he ended up going a little bit mad, right? A little bit crooked. So he ages himself, kills his own mother, and then of course becomes the dictator known as Lord Chaos. Nice, dude. Awesome. Great plan. Yeah, his name sounded evil for a reason, so you were onto something. Inspired by the original Titans team, a group of super teens going by the name Teen Titans go back in time to kill Donna before Lord Chaos, the now evil world conquering god, was born. Not a bad idea. We love time travel, let's do it. But here's the fun part, Lord Chaos goes back with them in order to prevent them from killing his mother / him. Gotcha, there he goes. So Robert was still born, but thankfully the Titans of Myth stepped in and stripped the mother and child of these godlike powers. The Titans of Myth bringing along Lord Chaos, stating he will either learn or cease to be. Learn or cease to be. This sounds like my grade 12 math teacher. He'll either learn or he'll cease to be. Now look at me, ceasing to be. Sorry, Mr. Lake. Number 7, Maxine Baker. The daughter of Buddy Baker, aka Animal Man, has quite the abilities. In the pre-Flashpoint era, Maxine Baker wasn't a huge character, right? But she of course picked up some of the powers from her father, those powers being the ability to tap into the life web and control it. And with the new 52, Maxine got bigger and badder. She became the avatar of the Red, which sounds a lot cooler already. I mean, come on. The Red is another name for the life web. So Maxine can control every animal on Earth as well. And that's not all. She's super powerful, guys. She can also control the elements and create this Eldritch Blast. It's no wonder most of the time people are trying to get a handle on her powers. I mean, even she struggles with them. Controlling animals would be a sweet gig, eh? Imagine the practical jokes. Oh my god. Number 6, Thunder. Making her first appearance in Outsiders Volume 3, Issue 1, Thunder is the daughter of Black Lightning and Lynn Stewart. So Anissa Pierce had a pretty nice deal with her father, okay? The deal was that if she graduated from college, only then can she consider a career in crime fighting. And the night of her graduation, that is exactly when she donned the costume. It didn't take long for her to get approached by Red Arrow, who offered her a position in the Outsiders. Her father though, her father is like, no, you have to resign from these crazy people, I don't like this. And of course she said, no way, Jose. And then, when Savick came sniffing around again, her father actually helped the team out and her. And this was a cool time. This was the first time they had actually seen each other in action. What a moment that would be, eh? So Anissa was trained by Nightwing in combat. Nice. She's a trained doctor. Nice, hence the whole education before kicking ass deal. That plus her abilities to increase the mass of her body and become like immovable. And super strength? Look out, you're toast.
In at number 5 is Martian Manhunter. John Johns is another character that people really sleep on, but this guy is insane with his level of ability. There's a panel from the New 52 when Martian Manhunter is fighting off all the members of the Justice League at the same time. Let me break this down. With his left hand, Martian Manhunter is displaying his shapeshifting abilities, turning into a massive spiky club and whacking away both Cyborg and Hal Jordan Green Lantern. With his right hand, I think it's safe to say he's showing off his super strength, as he's got a power grip on the lasso of truth, and I'm assuming he's resisting its power, which is just a whole feat on its own. Behind him is Aquaman, who's like jabbing at Johns with his trident, but this is just going through the Martian Manhunter and is showing off his intangibility powers. And then we got Superman, who's flying around the fight at a decent distance away, while Manhunter is using his heat vision to keep him there. And then the funniest part is Batman doing absolutely nothing, just picking up the Flash, who seems to have just been knocked down. It's almost a perfect display of his abilities, but leaving out a handful, and one of the biggest. John is the most powerful telepath on Earth, and one of the most powerful in the universe. Martian Manhunter has been called the most powerful being on the planet, and he's at the top of the list of people that Superman is afraid to fight. That's enough said right there. Number 4, Orion. Orion is a new god and the son of Darkseid, and as such he's not only incredibly conflicted, but also incredibly powerful. He has many forms and he has many abilities. Orion is repeatedly praised and stated to be a warrior with, quote, skill and ferocity second to none, which allowed him to become the greatest warrior on Apokolips while he was undercover there. He is so astronomically strong that he has held open the hand of the god of strength and might, who had been threatening creation and ripping holes in reality with that strength. And he has stood against and beaten a sun-charged Superman one-on-one, something no one else in the Justice League was able to do. His durability is so powerful that he can tank star system destroying explosions. Orion is so fast that he moves with the speed of thought, and he's so smart that he was able to create the Genesis box, which can destroy and rebuild a universe. He can grow and shrink to any size, move through time, has a healing factor as if he actually needed one, has incredible super senses, and wields the Astro Force, which does a hell of a lot on top of everything, including matter and energy manipulation. But as an example, it once sealed holes in reality and knocked out Superman in a single shot. And that's all just Orion holding back and not using his true power called the Source of the Beast. And yet, he flies around space on a stupid looking scooter. And at number 3 is The Flash. Okay, look, I gotta tell you now that I'm actually gonna be talking about Wally West here. It's pretty well known that Wally is even faster than Barry Allen is, and I'd argue that he is the fastest speedster anywhere. In Flash Forward, Wally somehow went, quote, faster than the Speed Force, which means he went faster than the source of his own super speed. That makes no freaking sense! He can outrun Superman and Barry Allen. He outran the Black Flash, which is basically death, taking it to the end of the universe where it just ceased to exist. He has saved the Titans, who were all over the US, and he did it in 6¼ seconds. And my favorite point, there was a time that he saved the whole population of a city from a nuclear explosion as that explosion was going off, and he did it at like 1 billion times the speed of light. How does that even make sense? It doesn't. That's your answer. Wally West is insane. He can manipulate the Speed Force to make time basically irrelevant to himself, and he might as well just be classified as a god. Number 2, Firestorm. Where do we start with Firestorm? The main version of the character is Ronnie Raymond, who was fused with his professor Martin Stein. But there are a lot of other versions of Firestorm, a lot of whom are either one person or different fusions of people. It's annoyingly complex. The character, as you might guess, has pyrokinetic abilities plus durability, flight, reflexes, and super strength, but the character's main thing is that they can rearrange the molecules of matter. Now this ability is obviously incredibly OP, and it would simply take one story to make him completely god level, but for the most part, writers kind of misuse him. Potentially, this character could transform entire planets into whatever he wanted. With his powers, Firestorm's done some pretty godlike things. For example, Firestorm manifested a pink bunny mascot suit out of thin air around the villain's Skull Crusher. He's turned explosives into a jack-in-the-box and a cement truck into a giant teddy bear. It's hilarious, but like low-key, absolutely insane. On a way less hilarious note though, he also turned a girl into salt when he was resurrected as Deathstorm, and in Doomsday Clock, Firestorm accidentally turned a crowd of Russian protesters into glass. But outside of matter manipulation, Firestorm has had some impressive feats, like surviving the nuclear meltdown that originally created the hero and absorbing all the excess radiation, and then another time, Firestorm survived a straight-on nuclear explosion. An alternate version of the character called Deathstorm was able to absorb and capture 3 different Justice League teams into its Firestorm matrix, allowing the crime syndicate to take over Earth for a period of time. And in Infinite Crisis, Firestorm was able to seal a multiversal rift. Now, in case you haven't noticed, we have kind of moved away from physically unstoppable characters to characters that are just pure science fiction gods. In at number 1 is Captain Atom. Nathaniel Atom was transformed into Captain Atom in the 60s after being semi-forced to participate in a potentially fatal experiment, piloting a device encased in an alien metal. Now, the experiment didn't kill him. What it did do was atomize him and bond the alien metal to his flesh, giving him superpowers. Captain Atom's powers are like Firestorm's powers, but boosted to a whole different level, and with many more side abilities. Matter manipulation, energy manipulation, time manipulation, energy absorption, telepathy, spatial manipulation, quantum manipulation, force field creation, magic and mind manipulation, and control of the quantum field are all on this guy's roster of abilities. These powers have let him perform some insane feats like creating and destroying whole universes, fighting Superboy Prime, easily defeating a team composed of multiple versions of himself before absorbing them and creating an explosion powerful enough to destroy a universal space-time continuum. Captain Atom is potentially the most powerful superhero, certainly the most powerful who is also a member of the Justice League.
Number 10, the Super Enemies. Starting off our list today with a dark Justice League with no comic origins comes the Super Enemies, an alternate universe version of the Super Friends devoted to the cause of deceit, injustice, and terror. The team consists of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Robin, Aquaman, Zan, Jaina, and Gleek. However, they have no morals and are just evil mirrored versions of the Super Friends. In the episode they're featured in, the Super Friends meet these evil duplicates in the Hall of Evil, which is their Hall of Justice. The Super Enemies frequently taunt the authorities, who are powerless to stop them, although the civilian police are actually equipped to just straight up take them down, as they have kryptonite lasers to stop evil Superman. The Superman of the Super Friends universe first met them when he was mysteriously transported into their universe while trying to stop a volcano from erupting, while their Superman was transported into the Super Friends universe. As Superman tried to escape from these Super Enemies and the military armed with kryptonite weapons, the evil Superman was transported to the real universe to fight the Super Friends. Superman Prime ended up getting an antimatter flask that switched them back, which was good news for everyone. And then later on, Lex Luthor organized his own Legion of Doom to be the real anti-Justice League, and it had a much better name. Check out the one-off appearance of this evil team in 1979's Super Friends episode Universe of Evil. Number 9, Conglomerate. The Justice League doesn't always have to consist of the same roster. I mean, don't get me wrong, I am a huge Batman and Superman fan, but there is also a smaller and less powerful team called Justice League International. And Mark Waid and Rod Wiggum had them face their evil duplicates in 1992. In the previous story, Booster Gold had just left the JLI to found his own corporate-sponsored team called the Conglomerate. Now that didn't work out too well, and the owner decided to pull new heroes out of another reality to form a new conglomerate of Deadeye, who's an alternate Green Arrow, Fiero, an alternate Fire, Frostbite, aka Ice, Elastaman, aka Elongated Man, Element Man, aka Metamorpho, Scarab, an alternate Blue Beetle, and Slipstream, an alternate Flash. The conglomerate decided to challenge the JLI to a quote-unquote friendly competition that quickly turned violent when they realized the new conglomerate were all from Quard, an evil antimatter world. The JLI managed to get them back into their own world, but it was a very close call to say the least. Check out the first appearance of the conglomerate in 1991's Justice League Quarterly number 1, or feel free to skip ahead to 1992's Justice League Quarterly number 8 for the fight of a lifetime. Number 8, Flashpoint. In an effort to stop his mother's murder, Barry Allen created the Flashpoint timeline, a significantly darker reflection of the main DC universe and one of my favorite DC storylines to date. In this timeline, Thomas Wayne becomes Batman after Bruce is killed instead of him. Wonder Woman is like a tyrannical ruler of the Amazons and is locked in a crazy war with Aquaman because she killed his wife, and Superman is nowhere to be found, which means the Justice League technically doesn't exist, and honestly, what's darker than that? Probably a decent amount because this is only number 8, but anyways. If you're not familiar with this timeline, then I highly recommend you check it out for yourself. It is such a good one. All I'll say is that by the end of the series, several major characters are dead, and then in the expanded universe of the Flashpoint timeline, even more characters are revealed to be dead. It's just nuts. Thankfully, Barry managed to fix things before it was too late, but that wasn't enough to erase the Flashpoint timeline completely. Because of that, the DC universe is still dealing with the events of Flashpoint even to this day. Give it a read for yourself, starting with 2011's Flashpoint Volume 2, Number 1. Number 7. The Crime Society. Hailing from Earth 3 comes the Crime Society of America, but not to be confused with the Crime Syndicate of America, who we may or may talk about later on. Consisting of Johnny Quick II, Owlman II, Power Ring, Superwoman, Ultraman, and a few others, this team of villains is basically just evil doppelgangers of the Justice League and the Justice Society. The Crime Society encountered and fought the Challengers, consisting of Donna Troy, Jason Todd, Kyle Rayner, and Bob the Monitor, and the Jokester. After the Challengers and the Jokester escaped to another universe, the Crime Society were offered a place among Monarch's transdimensional army, which they accepted, of course. The Crime Society went on to fight on Earth 51 and battle the Monitors. When Superboy Prime subsequently caused the destruction of Earth 51's reality, it's unknown if any of the Crime Society were able to actually survive that. Now while we're waiting to hear their fate, why not check out their story for yourself, starting with 2007's 52, Number 52. Number 6. Kingdom Come Justice League. In 1996, Alex Ross and Mark Waid teamed up to create the miniseries Kingdom Come. This miniseries was set in a near future where the traditional heroes of the past came together to stop the brutal superheroes of the new generation. The new Justice League of elderly but still very strong heroes like Superman and Green Lantern set up a prison to hold rogue heroes and supervillains alike. Unfortunately, the Gulag erupted in a riot between metahumans that threatened to destroy the entire world, and that caused, let's just say, a little bit more trouble for these geriatric heroes. In an act of desperation, the United Nations launched several nuclear bombs over the Gulag site. Batman and Wonder Woman deactivated 2 of them, but one of them was still primed and falls over the battlefield. Superman attempts to stop the bomb, but Marvel throws him back and stops the bomb himself, detonating it prematurely over the Gulag, killing a lot of the League, Cavalry, and many of the inmates as well. What makes the storyline so dark is that throughout the story, the Justice League struggle to follow their own morals, even as they impose their own brand of justice on a very unhappy world. Batman in particular sided with Lex Luthor to quote-unquote liberate mankind from the Justice League. In the end, Superman saw his failure, but only at the cost of thousands of lives. Check out the entire miniseries for yourself, starting with 1996's Kingdom Come, Number 1.
At number 5, we have another central member of the Justice League with the incredibly iconic Wonder Woman. Otherwise known as Princess Diana of the Amazons, Wonder Woman is the literal daughter of Zeus, and is one of the physically strongest beings in the DC universe. Her strength and speed are capable of reaching incredible levels, and while her healing and invulnerability aren't quite up to the level of a Kryptonian's, she does have a much stronger immunity to magical-based attacks. Combined with her ancient Amazonian equipment such as the Lasso of Truth, and you'd have to be a fool to try and mess with Wonder Woman. Coming in at number 4, we have the one and only Billy Batson, aka Shazam. It may seem odd to put a literal child so high up on the list of DC's most powerful superheroes, but Billy Batson's secret is that by merely saying the magic word of Shazam, he is able to transform into one of the most powerful, godlike beings in the DC universe, combining his powers from the Greek heroes and deities of Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, and Mercury. With all of these strengths combined, Shazam has been able to stand toe-to-toe with Superman himself. It's only his need to occasionally go back to his original kid form that stops Billy Batson from permanently being at the top of this list. At number 3, we have none other than Dr. Fate. Born under the name of Kent Nelson, Dr. Fate is a superhero that derives all of his powers from his equipment in the form of the Helmet of Fate, an ancient artifact that is literally billions of years old and contains the powers of Nabu, a cosmic being with limitless magical power as the Lord of Order. This means that while wearing the helmet, Dr. Fate is essentially a god with all of his magical abilities, capable of reshaping reality and seeing glimpses of the future. Compared to all the other magic users in the Justice League, Dr. Fate just might come out on top, and the only question left is, Which two superheroes could even beat him? Coming in at number 2, we've got to go with Barry Allen, the fastest man alive, aka the Flash. Barry's powers come from a deep connection to something known as the Speed Force. He's not simply capable of moving extremely fast like many superheroes, but is actually using energy from the very concept of speed itself. The Speed Force allows Barry to travel at practically limitless speeds, racing any potential adversary, and even allowing the Flash to travel through time and even alternate realities, moving so fast that he's capable of whizzing right past those fundamental laws of reality. Add enhanced senses and a whole lot of perks to the Flash's power set, and he stands out as one of the most well-rounded and powerful members of the Justice League. After all, how do you top someone you could never even catch? Well, there's just one hero that might be capable. That's right, it might be the obvious choice, but there really is no other. The number 1 pick has got to be Superman. The last son of the doomed planet Krypton, Superman is a beacon to the rest of the DC universe, a symbol of how good and hope-inspiring a superhero should be, and he luckily has the power set to back it up. Unless kryptonite or magic is involved, Superman can practically do anything, and the limits of his strength seem to only be self-imposed ones so that he doesn't literally shatter the planet with each punch. But even with all of this power, Superman never wavers in his quest for truth and justice, and remains a steadfast inspiration for everyone. And that is exactly how the world's most powerful hero should be.
Alright, at number 10 we have the very silly but nonetheless evil Super Enemies. In the 1970s animated TV show Super Friends, there's an episode in 1979 called Universe of Evil, where Superman travels to an alternate universe to meet the evil counterparts to the Super Friends, very creatively named the Super Enemies. And the team is made up of all those bad guys we've all known so well and grown up with. You know, like Aquaman with an eye patch, and tinted red Batman, and oh, who could forget the iconic alien monkey Gleek. What a trailblazing team of supervillains they were. But as much as I roast them, they do actually pose a decent threat to Superman in this storyline, to the point where they team up with the military armed with kryptonite weapons, and even bring in their own version of Superman, giving our Superman a good old run for his money. But luckily, Superman Prime finds something called an antimatter flask, which turns all the super enemies back to being good again. Thank God Aquaman retires that eye patch and is no longer so intensely menacing looking. What a relief.
Number 9. Justice League of Assassins. Unfortunately, this evil Justice League didn't stick around too long. Being first introduced in Superman Volume 4, number 15 in March 2017, the Justice League of Assassins on Earth 14 were a group of augmented, mostly non-superpowered soldiers led by the obviously powerful Superman. The team was made up of Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash, Batman, Harley Quinn, and Green Lantern. With the exception of Superman, their powers relied mainly on weapons and technology, but primarily they used advanced firearms. Ultimately, they were all slaughtered, with this Superman being kidnapped by Prophecy, which is a shame, because this team looked super cool and they seemed to inhabit a pretty dark and grim looking post-apocalypse. Could have been very interesting.
At number 8, we have the Conglomerate. This group is basically a bizarro version of the Justice League created by Booster Gold. The group is formed after Booster's departure from the Justice League International due to a lack of respect from his peers. When Booster first fails to bring together a competent group of heroes to form the first iteration of the Conglomerate, someone named Claire Montgomery comes in to manage the group. With her, she brings along the likes of Deadeye, an alternate Green Arrow, Fiero, a guy with fire powers, Frostbite, an ice power guy, Elastaman, a stretchy man, Element Man, much like Metamorpho, Scarab, a knockoff of Blue Beetle, and Slipstream, a dollar store Flash. When they engage in a small friendly skirmish with the Justice League International, the fight quickly turns serious, and everyone learns at once that these new members have actually been brought from an antimatter world called Quard, and they're basically just entirely evil, and always had been. Luckily, the JLI take them down, but it's a close one.
Number 7. Squadron Sinister. This isn't so much an evil alternate Justice League as this team actually appears in the Marvel universe. But I'm gonna count it because I'm just stubborn like that. The original Squadron Sinister was created as a sort of obvious play on DC Comics Justice League characters Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, and The Flash, with the characters Hyperion, Nighthawk, Dr. Spectrum, and the hilariously named Wizard, respectively. The team was created by the Grand Master after he encountered the Squadron Supreme, and they first appeared in Avengers number 69 when they were pitted against the Avengers in a game between the Grand Master and Kang the Conqueror. They're bad guys who are counterparts to 4 members of the Justice League. I gotta stop justifying my reasons. They're on the list. Argue with me down below if you don't like it.
Alright, at number 6 we have the Justice Lords. Appearing in the animated series Justice League in the episode titled A Better World, this evil team is led by a radicalized Superman. Radicalized because he witnesses Lex Luthor murder the Flash and threaten nuclear war. So, Superman decides he'd abandon the typical hero's code of conduct and kill the bald tyrant himself. And in this alternate universe, Lex Luthor isn't just some super rich supervillain working away and hiding. He's actually worked his way to becoming the President of the United States. So, after his death, there is a power vacuum to be filled. And who would be better rulers than this evil alternate Justice League? No one. They didn't think so anyway, so they take over and put in place a totalitarian government with the justification being that they are protecting humanity from itself. And they start calling themselves the Justice Lords, which, I mean, you should sort of know you're the bad guys when the word Lord is in your title. Luckily, the real Superman is able to catch on and take them out of power before anything goes too far.
Number 5, Supergirl. It's funny, when I look up how powerful is Supergirl, I found more stuff about how she isn't more powerful than Superman, as if saying that Kara Zor-El is stronger than Kal-El is insulting their own masculinity. Kara is technically older than Kal is, and she also never learned to hold back, meaning she goes in with 100% effort. This made her appear to be much stronger than Superman when she showed up on the scene, but Superman has been absorbing the rays of our sun much longer, meaning he inherently has more power and more knowledge of how to use it, and his ancestry makes him just better than most other Kryptonians. That's the same reason, or part of the reason, why he was stronger than Zod. So now all the Superman stans can just like chill out for a sec. Supergirl has the potential to have all the exact same abilities that Superman does, but at a lower level, which still makes her insanely capable and one of the strongest beings in the universe. She has fought Barry Allen pretty successfully, obviously not trying to hurt him though. She put up a decent fight against Wonder Woman, though she still got kinda destroyed, and beat the snot out of Cyborg Superman, and then there is Power Girl, the Earth 2 counterpart of Supergirl, who seems to be even stronger. Number 4, Swamp Thing. Alec Holland was a chemist and botanist who spent most of his efforts creating a chemical formula that could increase the growth speed of plants and even let plants grow in abnormal places. Unfortunately for Alec, the lab he was working in was sabotaged and he passed away in the ensuing explosion and fire while running out into the swamp where his lab resided. Since his body was covered in the formula he created, his consciousness was absorbed by the plant life of the swamp. In a new human-like plant body, Alec rose as the Swamp Thing. Alec was now an earth elemental and avatar of the green, essentially a god of plants. With unimaginable levels of superhuman strength, durability, and inability to feel pain, regeneration from plant life, he can move at the speed of light, alter his size drastically, shapeshift to allow himself to have other abilities like flight. He can duplicate himself, has chlorokinesis or control over plants, which allows him to teleport through plant life, as well as, and thanks to his connection to the green, he can even move through time and possesses cosmic awareness. He's taken control of all the algae on Earth to remove most of Earth's oxygen in a show of strength. He's taken hits from and even restrained Superman and knocked the wind out of Wonder Woman. Swamp Thing is one of the more interesting heroes that DC has, and he deserves more respect on his name. Number 3, Black Adam. Whether you like it or hate it, Black Adam has been part of the Justice League. Black Adam has essentially the same base power that is possessed by Shazam, who made part 1 of this list, but for Black Adam, his ideologies and ruthless nature mean that he is simply much more capable than Shazam because he does not hold himself back. All we have to do to see how capable Black Adam is to take a peek at 2007's World War III event, or as I like to call it, Black Adam versus literally everyone. Black Adam single-handedly goes up against, beats the snot out of, and even takes the life of some of the combined forces of the JSA, the JLA, Captain Marvel, China's Great 10, the Phantom Stranger, Martian Manhunter, Power Girl, Wonder Woman, Stargirl, Plastic Man, Jay Garrick, several Green Lanterns, and more, all at the same time. And almost no one anyone can take him down for the whole run of the comic. It's absolutely insane. Now, as for his whole inclusion in the Justice League, he was officially a member, but he also wasn't exactly good, which he never really is. We can discuss in the comments, but he is easily one of the strongest people to ever be a part of the Justice League. Number 2, Dr. Fate. I honestly thought Dr. Fate was just a part of the Justice Society and not the Justice League, but I was wrong, and I'll admit that. So, while he should have been in part 1, he is making part 2. Hate on me in the comments if you want, I literally don't care. One of the first magic-wielding superheroes ever, Dr. Fate debuted in 1940, way before Doctor Strange. Technically, Dr. Fate is a name used by the wearers of the Helmet of Fate, which was created by the powerful sorcerer Nabu, along with the Amulet of Anubis and the Cloak of Destiny. When Nabu passed away, his spirit was absorbed into these items, allowing him to live on through his hosts. Now, while Kent Nelson was the first, characters like Inza Kramer, Jared Stevens, Khalid Nassour, and a few others have wielded the powers of Dr. Fate throughout history, inhabiting the Tower of Fate and fighting magical threats. The Helmet of Fate itself grants the hero their vast magical powers, which include reality manipulation, matter manipulation, and time traveling, among many other abilities, plus the knowledge to cast spells that can do even more. And in at number 1, is Lobo. Lobo is basically what would happen if you took Marvel's Wolverine and Deadpool and smacked them together, added a pinch of the Punisher, and then made him as strong and tough as Superman and coated him in Gene Simmons face paint from the band Kiss. Now, as with all characters' feats, we need to take it with a pinch of salt, because this Zarnian in one story was able to take out the New Gods, who are all ridiculously powerful, but in the same story, he was captured and restrained by 3 Green Lanterns. He's been able to knock out Superman, regenerate himself from a pool of blood, has been deemed immortal and banned from both heaven and hell, he can track anyone he has met across the galaxy, is immune to psychic attacks, he's a genius, can break the 4th wall, can possess others, speak 17,000 languages, can clone himself using his blood, can travel time and space with his motorcycle, and in one story, he literally takes out every single superhero, and man, he punched Santa's head off. That's just messed up. Lobo is almost completely unstoppable, and for some reason, he was very briefly part of the Justice League. And in at number 10 is Superman. We are kicking off this list with what everyone would expect to see, because it's just not interesting to have him any lower. That's my reasoning, and I'm sticking to it. Superman is the baseline. He is what we compare almost all other DC superheroes to when we are talking about power. Superman at his base level can destroy planets, tank hits from just about anyone, including Darkseid himself, and he has a whole plethora of abilities that some are even forgotten when writers use Superman in a story. But the thing about Superman is that he almost has no upper limit. If this guy wants to, he will fly into not only our sun, but multiple suns throughout the universe to drink up their radiation in order to gain a massive power boost. He's been able to break the barrier between dimensions, and in some stories he has existed until the very end of the universe, splitting himself into multiples so that he can be a hero for the entirety of that universe, although that wasn't technically canon. The point is, while he is arguably without equal because of the fact that he has no real limit, there are a few members of the League who could give him a run for his money. In at number 9, Shazam. With the mystical power of 6 gods, Shazam is not just said to be the physical equivalent to a baseline Superman, but he can almost definitely take on Superman himself, as the Man of Steel has no resistance to magic. Shazam has actually proved himself to be faster than and also able to knock out Superboy Prime, who is one of the most powerful versions of Superman ever, able to shake reality with punches, that kind of thing. But this isn't a list about people who can take on Superman. Batman has stated that Shazam is one of the most powerful beings on planet Earth for a reason. He has KO'd the god of evil and father of Darkseid, Yuga Khan, with one punch. And speaking of gods, Shazam has been able to defeat the DC versions of Ares, Atlas, and Thor, all of whom are incredibly powerful gods. While he is astoundingly strong, fast, and durable, Shazam's true potential, I think, comes from his natural affinity for magic, which can potentially allow him to do almost anything, which I know to be true because of another magic-wielding leaguer. Number 8, Zatanna. A lot of people sleep on Zatanna, and that's a mistake. Zatanna is part of the Homo Magi race, giving her a genetic talent for magic that makes her one of the greatest magic users in the multiverse. Zatanna was born with magic, but she's not limited by that. With the addition of learned magics, Zatanna can cast a whole multitude of spells that allow allow her to do things like travel dimensions, summon objects and beings, perform telekinesis and advanced telepathy, redirect and return attacks, mess with the weather or even time of day, manipulate her own size or transform into basically anything, become intangible, and manipulate magical versions of the elements. But that's all the basic stuff. She can cast spells that can manipulate reality, alter the molecular structure of objects, and move forward, backwards, and freeze time itself. And that's not even getting into what she could do with black magic. Sure, she may not be as physically capable as some other characters on this list, but she has the potential to make child's play of most of them despite that fact. If you guys are enjoying this list so far, make sure to drop a like and subscribe here at Top 10 Nerd. And make sure to let us know any topics for videos you want to see in the future. But coming in at number 7 is Wonder Woman. As 1/3 of DC's Trinity, Wonder Woman has to make this list. Where Superman is a being of raw power, that, plus his outstanding moral character, are what makes him so unstoppable. But then we have Wonder Woman, who is almost equal in terms of strength, speed, and durability to the Man of Steel, but she's leagues and bounds above the guy in terms of her skill. In a melee fight, she will outmatch pretty much anyone, and she will be quicker than almost anyone, including Superman, because she doesn't even need to think when fighting. She's just a natural. I don't think we can actually show it, but my favorite Wonder Woman panel, which I think comes from Injustice, is literally her snapping Superman's arm using her elbow while he screams in pain and Harley Quinn is in the background like rooting her on. It's fantastic. But even in regular continuity, she's been able to last a hot minute against a mind-controlled Superman who was not holding back, and she could have even taken him down if she wanted to. And then we talk about Death Metal, where Wonder Woman got powered up to the point she was taking on beings of cosmic levels of power using a magical chainsaw. Then she went on to Valhalla, of all places, but even managed to get out of there and come back to Earth. And that's the other thing. Wonder Woman has access to not only magical artifacts, but she was gifted with magical abilities by the goddess Hecate, or however you pronounce that. And those powers were leagues above Zatanna's own magical prowess. And we've already talked about how powerful magic can be. There isn't much on Earth that can really stand against Wonder Woman. And at number 6 though is Green Lantern. I think a lot of the time Green Lantern is just thought of as the guy who can make breakable green light constructs, but that is just a huge oversimplification. To prove my point, all we gotta do is look at some of the things done by the most powerful Green Lantern, Hal Jordan. Hal is essentially pure willpower, which is what powers his Green Lantern ring. This means he has incredibly intense levels of strength and durability, but anything he does with his ring is just better than any other lantern. And that's before he even forged his own ring, which no other Green Lantern has ever done. Hal has such control over his ring that he has been able to pull a spaceship out of the gravitational pull of a star, but he has also used the ring to attack nanites inside his own bloodstream. He can destroy entire planets, one-shot KO Superman, hit people so hard that it warps reality, and then as most people know, he destroyed every single member of the Green Lantern Corps. Now after creating his ring, he was even more powerful than that. He literally started to become a being composed of will, which doesn't even really make sense, but means he can't really die. He obliterated Sinestro, who was powered up by Parallax. He moved so fast he broke the Speed Force barrier, tanked a massive blast from Mogo, who was a Green Lantern that's a planet, and Mogo was being boosted up by hundreds of other lanterns when that happened. And he created hard light constructs that were actually alive and couldn't be beaten by the Green Lantern and Sinestro Corps combined. Absolutely insane. Number 5, Metamorpho. Rex Mason was a globe-trotting adventurer and archaeologist who encountered the Orb of Ra on one of his journeys. This orb mutated him just a little horribly, but alongside the mutations, it also gave him the power to convert his body into any element. If you ask me, it's a pretty fair trade-off. I would take it. Using the power to shapeshift his body into various forms using the elements, he became a hero. Now Rex can stretch, bounce, elongate, control, and reshape his body as if it were made out of rubber or plastic. He can alter the shapes and consistencies of the elements he becomes and even combine them to form complex compounds. He has biofission, meaning that Rex can split his body into several copies of himself, each with the same powers. And lastly, he has a naturally occurring body armor, but it's a little redundant because although Metamorpho's powers allow him to fight against evil, they also are a curse, keeping him trapped in a hideous form, unable to even die.
He's not hideous, honestly. People are just kind of judgmental. Number 4, Stargirl. Starting off as Star-Spangled Kid of the team Stars and Stripes with her stepdad, Pat Duggan, after joining the JSA, Courtney Whitmore is given the Star Rod when Jack Knight decides to quit being Starman. To continue his legacy, eventually she officially declares herself as Stargirl. Now, as Star-Spangled Kid, Courtney used the Cosmic Converter Belt, which enhances a number of Courtney's abilities such as her agility, durability, speed, stamina, and strength, as well as allowing her to create Star Blasts from the stored energy of the belt. When she became Stargirl, she still kept this belt, but now she's using the Star Rod, which allows her to fly as well as absorb energy which she can project into various uses, such as blasts and force fields. Also, because the rod is attuned to her, it can receive mental commands from a distance, so she can do multiple different things here. Pretty good. Number 3, Aztec. Okay, since we are talking about a character who has a lot to do with Aztec mythology, I will 110% mess up some pronunciation here, just a forewarning. Uno, the man who would become Aztec, was trained from birth by the mysterious Q Society, which is a secret organization dedicated to providing a champion for Quetzalcoatl. His mission is to prepare for the eventual second coming of the dark god Tezcatlipoca. To help with that, Aztec's power comes from the Mask of Warriors, which has been handed down from warrior to warrior over the generations, with their consciousness becoming one with the mask, meaning Aztec can call upon the experience of his predecessors in any situation, which is incredibly helpful. The helmet bestows its wearer with a variety of abilities other than that though, including enhanced audio and visual systems like X-ray and infrared vision. It protects the wearer, increasing physical strength, and will even transfer full motor control over to the helmet if the wearer becomes unconscious. The armor can camouflage itself, turning it invisible or reducing the wearer's molecular density. The gauntlets contain energy blasters located in the palms and launchers hidden in the wrists that can shoot wire nets, cables, or mini rockets. Kind of like Iron Man, the armor's chest piece acts as a power battery for the suit and also allows the venting of highly destructive energy that can destroy a whole city block. The suit also allows him to fly and allows Aztec to travel through space. It also looks super cool. Number 2, Mr. Miracle. Mr. Miracle was Scott Free, who is the god of escape in the New Gods mythology. So that's already a high level of praise. A Genetian raised on Apocalypse, Scott and Big Barda left for Earth, where he used the skills he learned in escapology both as a performance artist and in the Justice League of America. So, obviously as a new god he has immortality, super strength, durability, and agility, but the fun part is his escapology. Scott can basically escape from most things, even in his sleep, and no, I'm not joking. He is aware of the unconscious procedures he's mastered and can modify them in their use with other skills to use new knowledge. He's also very proficient when it comes to making traps. It may not seem like an incredibly useful ability, but it is certainly unique and can be used in more instances than you may think, especially when on a team like the Justice League. And in at number 1 is the Phantom Stranger. First appearing in the first issue of his own self-titled comic all the way back in 1952, the Phantom Stranger is an immortal to the extent of even surviving having his own heart taken out of his body. The Phantom Stranger is a mysterious supernatural guide and specialist in the occult. He can travel across space and time at will, even to magical dimensions, including the realm of the just dead, the antechamber of souls, heaven, hell, apocalypse, and the realm occupied by the Quintessence. All of which is something very few Justice League members can actually do. There's a lot that is just kind of not known about this character, which is a purposeful thing, but it's a really annoying thing for making a video on him on YouTube. In the New 52, he is apparently Judas Iscariot, roaming the earth trying to make up for the guilt of betraying Jesus. I don't know where that came from, it just kinda is the way it is. He is one of the most powerful magic users in DC Comics, with his use of magic being almost unmatchable if not taken by surprise.